Welcome to the Rural Roots Canada podcast. I'm your host, Tim Parent, alongside Craig Lester. And Craig, the big news in the last week or so is this screwworm situation, the New World screwworm situation in Texas. And last week, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the government of Canada, essentially temporarily banned livestock from Texas after there were 2 confirmed cases found in 2 calves. And as a result, it's all livestock, including horses, originating from or present in Texas within 21 days before crossing the border will not be accepted into the country. Now, since the original announcement, there have been 2 more cases in Texas, including a confirmed case in a goat. And there's also been a 5th confirmed case in a dog in New Mexico. Now, in that case, the U.S. Department of Agriculture says it's an isolated incident, but it is the first confirmed case in that state, and there are certainly some concerns about the screwworm situation spreading.
It's definitely something that's concerning. And, obviously the CFIA is taking some steps in regards to protecting livestock up here in Canada. And obviously we're going to be keeping a close eye on this in regards to just stay on top of what's happening.
This pest, it's again called the New World screwworm in particular. It's a parasitic fly whose flesh-eating larvae feed on the living tissue of warm-blooded animals, causing severe and often fatal damage. And obviously a major concern for livestock and for all animals really on the farm. And as we mentioned, they're also making sure that they're keeping horses away from that. And that could have some effects on the Calgary Stampede. Now, we reached out to the Calgary Stampede here at Rural Roots Canada, and they did send us a statement. They said they don't anticipate any disruptions to its Western events programming due to the screwworm situation in Texas. In that statement, they said that requirements of this nature are common and competitors traveling into Canada are accustomed to complying with animal health regulations. Based on the current restrictions and timelines, we do not anticipate any disruption to Stampede events. So it's still about a month away, a little less, I guess, until the Stampede kicks off. So we'll see how this situation develops over the next few weeks. Hopefully they do get a handle on that screwworm situation in Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just continue to watch it, and hopefully they're able to get on top of it very, very soon.
Okay, let's switch gears now and talk about a change with the Alberta Blue Book of sorts. Essentially, Craig, they're starting a digital app.
Absolutely. Well, it's really exciting that this next evolution of the Blue Book is coming out. It's obviously a collaboration between the Alberta Canola, Alberta Greens, and Alberta Pulse Growers, and this new mobile app, which is available on both Android and Apple. It's going to allow to have everyone have the power of the Blue Book in the palm of their hand. And obviously they've been working on this for a bit now, but to be able to launch it and to be able to help farmers make timely crop protection information is really important. I think that one of the biggest things is that there's a number of 3 different functions of it that I think the farmers are really going to love having looked at it. There is offline functionality, which means if they don't have a great connection, they can still use and review data on their favorite products. There is a very comprehensive database that they'll have a lot of information that they can access, and there's also ease of use in that regard on that product. So it's definitely going to be a big advantage for farmers that want to have it and can use it, sort of thing. So and obviously if you're familiar with the Blue Book, it's been around since 1977, offering guidance on pesticide application, product selection, and farm safety. And the new app just kind of builds upon that foundation and improving accessibility while maintaining the reliability that users expect.
And to be clear, this isn't replacing the print copy. This is essentially the mobile app is going to be a complement to the existing print edition. That will continue to be produced and distributed. It's just another tool in the toolbox that you have, and this time it's handy right on your phone, and it makes things a little easier in some respects because it's all about timing, right? Like crop protection decisions. You got it. Timing is critical and all that, and so
absolutely. So one of the things that farmers have made clear is that they want to continue to have the Blue Book available to them, and the commissions have come out and said yes, that the Blue Book will continue to be available for farmers. And so, as anyone who uses the Blue Book knows, there's over 700 different registered products within the Blue Book. There's also going to be There's also over 700 products in the mobile app with all of that comprehensive information that we see in the Blue Book as there as well. So I think it's an evolution sort of, because the Blue Book in itself is a very unique product. Like, it's something that in the development of the app, the commissions found there was nothing like it. That this hard copy, this resource that farmers have here in Alberta is unique in itself, just given how in depth the information it provides when compared against other crop protection guides. And so, in building the Blue Book app, we definitely tried to continue to have all of that in there.
An important tool, again, such a vital resource for agronomists and farmers and for everyone who's been used. I mean, it's a success story, really, the Blue Book, and used all across the country. And having that digital access now is just going to make things so much easier. And so kudos to Blue Book for getting that app up and running. All right, and speaking of up and running, Nuffield scholars certainly like to hit the road, hit the ground running every day, and chasing their wonderful stories around the world as it relates to agriculture, of course. Craig, you yourself are a Nuffield scholar.
Yes, very fortunate to be a Nuffield scholar for the year of 2023. My study took me around the world. I was on 6 different continents, 15 different countries, and it was just an incredible experience during that time. I think, but the exciting thing going on right now is that applications for the 2027 year are now open, and people who love agriculture, who have a curiosity for learning and want to meet people from all over the world and really expand their knowledge in regards to a certain topic, and then beyond that, agriculture and food production in general, and then bring that back and help their industry here in Canada, are being asked to apply. The application window is currently open at nuffield.ca, but honestly, don't take it from my words. I had a chance to sit down with current contemporary scholar Jenna Sarich, who talks about her experience as a Nuffield scholar and why people need to sign up.
The title of my study, I feel like I've been adapting it as I go along, figuring out what I want to focus more so on. So how I describe it usually is looking at livestock sustainability from a systems approach. So really factoring in all the environment, all the social, and all the economic factors that go into achieving sustainability.
Amazing. So if you were talking to someone in regards to the Nuffield Scholarship and the journey that you've been through, what would you be telling them about why they should apply and who should be applying for this type of opportunity?
I feel like that's such a long list, and I think there's really 2 sides to it, because I was a little bit more on the younger, greener side coming into the Nuffield Scholarship. I've been in my career for about 4 or 5 years, but not as seasoned as a lot of others. And I found a lot of value in that because I still have so much to go. I still am at this crossroads where, do I go back and do a PhD? Do I, I can kind of go in whatever direction. So doing the Nuffield, you're able to see everything that's out there and see all the opportunities and be able to grasp onto the opportunities. Also being in a stage of my life where I traveled for 25 weeks during my Nuffield travels, and I was able to do that is huge. But I could also see having a lot of value of this being, you've been in your career for a long time, you have a lot of experience, and traveling and seeing it through those eyes, I think you would gain an enormous amount of perspective as well. So I feel like really it can be for anyone as long as you're willing to want to learn, want to meet new people, and put yourself in some uncomfortable situations, but always looking back on it and never regretting a second of, the experience you went through.
Was there any, moment during your study where, I know you mentioned that there was not necessarily an epiphany moment sort of thing that you were out seeking, but so those moments where like everything just came together?
I almost find, so with my topic, it started off quite broad, and everyone would say, you can start with a broad topic, and eventually you'll find which area you want to go down. Some area you want to narrow down in, and I kept waiting for that, and I kept waiting for the epiphany, and I felt like I was trying to force it, or I would be so interested in a visit, and I'd say, yes, this is it. And the more I tried to do that, the more I realized I want to look at the entire system. And I think that's how my brain has always worked. I really like understanding how everything works together, and not just one aspect of the system in great detail, but understanding how everything comes together, and how you do something in this area, there's going to be trade-offs in this area. So I think the more I traveled, the more I found that I want to look at everything. I want to look at how it fits together, and not just focus on one aspect, which does make writing the report probably harder, but it was so amazing to be able to pull in any conversation and make that something that's useful for my topic.
What would you say, again, one of the things we talk about in regards to your studies are the people that you get to meet, and you've talked a little bit about that on some of the stops in the last answer. Can you tell us in regards to what you've gained, and just the scope of how amazing some of the people that I could say most of the people are that you meet during these travels?
Yeah, it really there's so much humanity in the world, and having someone that you can call on in any corner of the world is such a unique network to be a part of. And there's so many times that I haven't even met the scholar that I'm going to stay with or that I'm talking to, but when you meet them, the first time you see them, it's like an old friend, even though it's the first time you've ever met somebody. And it's really hard to explain that experience to people that aren't in Nuffield. And I found that was everywhere around the world, and you felt so at home with people. Or if you didn't know someone was a scholar and you're talking and you find out that they're a scholar, you just get so extremely excited. I had so many cool opportunities and so many experiences coming out of the CSC. I was pretty sick. You're around so many people, and I think a lot of people kind of got some sicknesses coming out. And I was in New Zealand, and there was a lady that she was, I think, a 2008 scholar that I was able to make a connection with. And I told her, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to come to your house. Like, I'm not feeling good. I'm just going to get a hotel. Don't want to, bring this to you. And she was so insistent that means I have to come stay with her. And she ended up taking care of me, and she, made me a hot toddy, and I stayed with her for a couple days and got better and just talked about Nuffield things. And it was, such an amazing act of kindness. And honestly, there's examples of that everywhere around the world. I went to 6 different continents, and every single continent had just the most beautiful, amazing, friendly people, no matter where you are.
Incredible. And if you were talking to someone about what they need to, what they should be prepared for in terms of like what they're getting into when they are signing up.
Mm-hmm. I think you need to be prepared to be open to experiences, even if you don't think that it's something that might suit you or not something you were overly interested in going in, but to be open to things, because sometimes those are the things that ended up being your favorite experience out of anything. You definitely need to stay organized. Depending on what type of travel you want to do. And I kind of did the extreme side of travel. So also I don't know if my experience is representative of all scholars, but when you're traveling, you're going to visits every single day. You're learning so much. You're digesting that information. You're figuring out where you're going to sleep tomorrow or even tonight. You're trying to line up your next visits, and lots of times things they're not aligning. You need to change one thing, it ripple effects and changes everything else. But being able to go with the flow and being able to pivot, but also staying as organized as you can is probably the best. Also, and so many scholars told me this before, is you need to have a plan, but you need to leave room for spontaneity. And I think every single scholar can tell you that some of the best experiences were the things that they didn't know they would be doing, 12 hours from then. So that balance of having a plan, but also leaving it open so that if you make a connection, that can lead you to another connection and you can follow some of those opportunities.
Amazing. And take that question one step further. How about balancing it with your regular everyday life? What did you take away from that? Did it work for you? I guess what should people applying know about that before they get sign up?
I think that's going to be so different for everybody. I think being able to let your family and friends in on what you're doing and kind of bringing them into that world a little bit. And I think what has been useful for some people is when scholars come to Canada to visit and your family and friends are meeting those scholars, it really helps bring that Nuffield world to home a little bit more, and they understand that that's what you're doing when you're in these other countries. But it's so difficult to, I guess, like strike that perfect balance because you're diving deep into this topic for weeks at a time. But also I think it's really important that, leaving for 6 weeks at a time in that block is, I think, really critical because you can kind of completely detach a little bit from home and you really get into this bubble of Nuffield and you learn a lot about yourself as a person. And I did that 6-week stretch 4 times, which is a lot, but every single time you kind of learn more about yourself, I guess. And I'd always know that, okay, when 3 weeks hits, this is usually when, you kind of want to go home because there's so much behind you, there's so much ahead of you, but you keep pushing through. And then, by the end of it, you never really even, like, you want to go home, but you don't want to go home. I don't know. It's difficult. It's different for everybody. But making the most out of where you are, whether you're at home or whether you're traveling, just trying to be present in both.
Well, you summed things up pretty well there. I guess in closing sort of thing, if you could go back and talk to the person who signed up, what would you tell her about what differences do you see between that person and yourself at this point?
Yeah, I definitely think I've gained a lot of confidence, and I think a lot of that is because I've gained a lot of knowledge, and I'm kind of armed with a lot of this unique knowledge that perhaps a lot of people don't have, going to so many different countries and just learning so many niche things in so many ways. If I went back to myself, I would say I think I did do a decent job at putting myself out there and putting myself into some of these situations that I might not have felt overly comfortable in initially, but I would have done that more so. And I think specifically the Contemporary Scholar Conference, it can be very overwhelming. There's 90 scholars from around the world. Everyone's meeting each other, and some have already, there's a lot of scholars from different countries, and being able to kind of insert yourself into these conversations. I think everybody has some level of imposter syndrome, thinking they either, don't know enough to be a scholar, or you're in this room with all these scholars and they all seem so smart that, I don't know how I became one because, I can't be as smart as these people. But I think everybody is feeling the same way. And when you get to know all these scholars afterwards, I've probably ran into, if there was 90 of us, I think I've probably ran into at least 50 of them since. And when you see them again, it's like old family. Even if it's 2 months down the road, it's like seeing an old friend that you haven't seen in so many years. And you can get to know them a lot deeper because it's a little bit more one-on-one. And you learn that everybody felt the exact same way during the conference. So I think really, really putting yourself out there and meeting as many people as you can, because already I've only been in it for a year and a half. But those connections have already been, coming back in, even if it's through work or everyday life, scholars kind of pop up everywhere. So having as many connections as you can is extremely important.
Amazing. I guess anything you wanted to add, Jenna, that I haven't asked you?
I'd say if you're wondering if you should apply for Nuffield, or if there's something that's holding you back, or if you just think it's not the right time, I don't know if there's ever going to be a right time. So if you're thinking about doing it, I would say completely do it. It's probably one of the best things I've ever done in my life. And I can say that completely genuinely. No one in my life understands what it is. They see that I'm traveling and doing these crazy things, and I need to explain over and over what Nuffield is. And every time I do, people are amazed that an opportunity like this even exists. So the fact that we can, take that opportunity, and you can learn something that you're passionate about while traveling and while meeting friends from all around the world, I really don't think there's a downside to it.
That's Jenna Sarich. She is a current contemporary Nuffield scholar, on her thoughts on why people should consider signing up for the Nuffield scholarship and get their name in for the application process. That you can sign up apply through the Nuffield's website, nuffield.ca. That website again, nuffield.ca, to get more information on what is involved with the scholarship, and whether they'd be interested or not in signing up, right at nuffield.ca.
Not to oversell it, but I mean, these are life-changing scholarships. I mean, these are a real opportunity for you to get your hands right into the mix and understand what's happening in agriculture and food and farming, not just in your own backyard, but around the world. And Craig, I mean, you and I have talked about it. You've shared your experiences here on Rural Roots. You and I have had multiple conversations outside of Rural Roots Canada about your trips, and it's an amazing opportunity, and I would certainly encourage anyone who is interested in the world of ag, in food and farming, understanding where your food comes from, whatever the topic might be related to agriculture, put your name in. You just never know, and it really could be a life-changing opportunity for you. On that note, let's wrap things up on the Rural Roots Canada podcast for this week. On behalf of Craig Lester, I'm Tim Parent. Thanks so much for joining us.